I woke up to that bleak light creeping through my curtains, painting slanted shadows across the room. 7 years. Today marked 7 long years of marriage, yet instead of joy, a low, smoldering anger mixed with a deep sadness churned inside me. I pushed myself out of bed and ambled toward the kitchen, where the lingering scent of burnt toast told its own quiet story. Once again, she had forgotten the bread in the toaster, likely lost in the sea of her endless phone notifications. Standing by the counter, I arranged a small bouquet of lilies, the ones with soft white petals I'd picked up just the day before. They used to mean something to her, before her attention waned. Today was supposed to be our anniversary, and I clung to the thought that it still meant something. Before I could dwell further, Donna swept into the room, her heels clicking assertively on the tile. Her blonde hair was pulled up neatly, a sign of the efficiency she always carried. She barely spared me a glance. "Morning," she mumbled, eyes glued to her phone, thumbs scrolling furiously. In a fleeting glimpse, I caught a snippet of a message that tightened my jaw. For months now, she'd grown distant and curt, ever absent, locked into another reality. I placed the lilies on the table as their gentle scent mingled with the heavier trace of her perfume. "Happy anniversary," I offered quietly, my voice steady as I tested out the waters. She blinked as if roused from a stupor. "Oh, right, thanks." There was an awkward pause, then she forced a smile. "Busy day at the office. You know how it goes." With that, she grabbed her bag and spun toward the door. "Don't wait up. Might be late." I nodded silently, fingers curling around the cool countertop. She chirped, "We're keeping you busy. Always." And with that, she was gone, her departure punctuated by the sound of the door clicking shut. The silence that followed was heavy. I stared at those lilies wilting before my eyes, burdened by neglect. I could have called out, even demanded answers, but I hadn't. Over time, I'd learned that silence was my deadliest weapon. Let her believe I was still Samuel, the quiet, unassuming consultant husband she always assumed me to be. Little did she know the depths of my true self. That very morning, I drove to my secret second office, one she knew nothing about. Not the little cubicle theater where I pretended to work, but the real command center, hidden behind a plain warehouse on the edge of town. Inside, rows upon rows of monitors formed a fortress, my silent empire, tirelessly built over years. I owned her company, every payment and each brick, secretly protected under layers of proxies and aliases ever since the day we met. Once I had believed that love was built on trust. Now that trust had become my shield and my weapon. Settling into a worn leather chair, I listened to the quiet hum of the servers as I tapped on my keyboard, pulling up live security feeds from her office, a web of images installed by my own hand. There she was, Donna laughing with a young man named Paul, a 23-year-old personal trainer all muscle and an irritating smirk. I noticed how his hand brushed hers, lingering a beat too long. My pulse didn't spike, it plunged slowly, icy and unyielding, as betrayal crystallized before me in every captured frame. I could have stormed in, made a scene, but that wasn't my way. I'd built an empire by staying 3 moves ahead, by watching others dig their own graves. Now Donna was digging hers, and soon enough, I'd hand her the shovel. The day crawled by with me working on the real tasks that kept my company soaring, even as Donna played manager in her little corner of delusions. By evening, I returned home to find the bouquet of lilies still waiting untouched on the table. Then my phone buzzed. "Board meeting tonight." "Don't wait up," read the message. A hollow lie, so transparent it almost made me laugh. A board meeting at an office I owned? I knew her schedule too well. Nothing was really planned. Her charade had lost its spark. I typed a curt reply. My fingers were steady as always. I leaned back, listening to the knock of the house settling in the quiet of the evening. At 8:01 p.m., I didn't call, didn't pace. I just waited, letting the silence coil around me like a serpent. Donna believed me to be the oblivious shadow in her life, someone easily stepped over. But shadows move in silence and see everything. I pulled my laptop nearer and logged into my tracking software, a tool I'd installed months ago, nothing invasive, just a backup plan that I never thought I'd need until now. Her phone's GPS lit up, showing a red dot at a trendy downtown restaurant. No board meetings there, only candlelight and overpriced wine. Switching to my private investigator's feed, I had a discreet operative parked across the street. The photos began to stream. There was Donna in a striking red dress, and Paul, clad in a tight shirt, sharing dessert in a way that spoke louder than words. I closed my laptop. My breath remained even, my mind crystal clear. 7 years of our life was encapsulated in that one snapshot. And oddly, I felt nothing. No rage, no tears, only a switch flipping, a plan coming together in cold precision. I rose, grabbed my keys, and headed for the garage, deliberately leaving the wilted lilies behind. They were a silent testament to her neglect, a wilting bloom reflecting a choice made long ago. I resolved not to confront her, not yet. That confrontation would come later, once I'd maneuvered the board in my favor. I grabbed the duffel from the closet, packed and ready for emergencies. Clothes, a laptop, some files, nothing sentimental. The wedding photo on the dresser stared back with Donna's long frozen smile from a decade past, but I left it undisturbed. The drive to my newly acquired mansion took about 30 minutes, the neon lights of the city streaming past like blurred memories. I had bought the place a month ago, a fortress of steel and glass perched on a hill and overlooking everything, a cash deal made off the books, another secret she'd never sniffed out. The gates opened with a soft hum as I rolled into the garage, the engine's purr fading into the quiet of the night. Inside, the air was crisp and untouched by her presence. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, and a window wall displaying the city's twinkling skyline. It wasn't yet a home, merely a promising shell that was now mine. I dropped the duffel in the master suite, a space more expansive than our former home combined. The bed was stark, unadorned, but I didn't care. I wandered to the window and took in the city below, a giant chessboard on which I'd already mastered every move. Donna thought she was winning with her secret liaison with Paul, but she hadn't noticed the pieces I'd already shifted. The company she naively worked for was my creation, a labyrinth of power she never dared explore beyond her own cubicle. I texted my investigator with straightforward instructions. Keep eyes on her, hourly updates. He'd been my shadow for years, never questioning, always alert. At 11 p.m., the update came. Still at the restaurant, now moved to a bar. I pictured it, her fingers trailing along his sleeve, his breath on her neck, and felt not pain, but a resolute clarity. This wasn't the slow death of love. It was a contract being abruptly broken, a secret sealed with consequences. I had given her 7 years, a home, stability, and she'd squandered it all for fleeting moments with someone younger, someone who wouldn't be there when the bills piled high. Slowly, I made my way downstairs. My echoing steps on the immaculate floor were the beat to my plan. I poured myself a glass of water, opting for nothing stronger because I needed my mind unclouded. In that gleaming kitchen of stainless steel and granite, I silently planned. Cut her off, expose her, leave nothing but the wreckage of her betrayals behind. My actions weren't driven by revenge, at least not yet, but by a cold, precise notion of justice, honed over years of running a company she never knew had been mine. I set down the glass so it clinked sharply in the silence. Outside, the city pulsed on, unaware of the seismic change in my world. Back in the bedroom, I glanced at the still zippered duffel on the floor. I wasn't packing for comfort. This was about seizing control. I stood by the window, hands deep in my pockets, looking over the skyline. A map of all I had achieved and all she had lost. Somewhere Donna was laughing with Paul, convinced she was victorious. But she had no idea that the game had changed completely. I had woken before dawn, the bare mattress creaking beneath me as I sat up. City lights flickered in, echoing the restless pulse in my chest. I'd slept in my clothes, the duffel still zipped and untouched, because sleep was no priority now. The night before, I had crossed an irreversible line, and now it was time to chart my next course. As Donna tangled herself deeper in lies, I was ready to pull the threads apart. In the kitchen, the hiss of the coffee maker filled the silence, while my phone lay on the counter, mute since my last investigator update. Photos from La Belle Vie, Donna, arm around Paul as they stumbled out past midnight, were enough evidence for me. That betrayal was etched into my very core, a map that would lead to her ultimate undoing. I sipped my coffee, black and bitter, and slowly began locking her out of the joint financial accounts. Each click was a calculated severance, a future reckoning. Toward 8 the next morning, I drove to the warehouse office, my hidden bunker of control. The monitors buzzed quietly as I reviewed real-time feeds from our old home, noticing for the first time that Donna's car was missing from the driveway. She'd stayed out, likely at Paul's place, under the false assumption that I'd be there waiting. I allowed myself a rare smirk. Call it even, I thought, and then dialed my realtor. List the house. Cash offers only today. She never questioned. The deal was being made, and soon she would have nothing left. Another update from my investigator came by 10, a brief message. She's heading home. I leaned back and watched live surveillance as her sedan rolled up. Donna emerged, disheveled and wearing casual yoga pants instead of her usual style. When she tried to speak, her words vanished in confusion and panic. Moments later, my phone rang. Donna calling. I let it buzz a couple of times, then answered in a calm, measured tone. Check your messages, I said before hanging up and sending her the damning photos. Donna and Paul at the restaurant, spoon to spoon, her smile sharp as a dagger, accompanied by a brief caption, "Enjoy your new life." I imagined her staring in shock at her phone, drained of color. Soon she sank onto her couch, trembling as she attempted to reason with her credit card company. The inevitable doorbell rang, and the realtor arrived with a flyer in hand, firmly stating that the house was on the market. Owner's orders, with a deadline set for tomorrow. Donna's anger erupted as she tried to contest, but nothing could undo what had already been set in motion. I listened, my coffee cooling on the counter as I watched from the security feed. Every move she made now was guided by panic. Soon enough, her calls to Paul went unanswered, a final confirmation of her isolation. I closed the laptop, stretched, and let the calm of the warehouse return, the magnitude of my plan pulsing through me. I had stripped Donna of her house, her money, and even the illusion of Paul. Today, she would face the cost of 7 years of complacency. Without fanfare, I locked up my work for the day and headed to the mansion, the city receding in my rearview mirror. My empire remained unscathed. I was free and in control now, with nothing but a quiet sense of vindication. From the terrace of the mansion, I watched the sunrise crown the skyline, a steaming mug of coffee warming my hand. Below, the city glowed like a treasure I'd meticulously won, while Donna's misfortunes played out like scenes from a past life. Earlier that morning, I had seen Donna's downfall come full circle during that notorious board meeting. I remember stepping into the meeting room as Donna, at the head of a conference table in a glass-walled space, held a whiteboard marker with trembling hands. Her once commanding presence had given way to confusion when I entered without warning. "Samuel?" she stammered as the room fell silent. I simply walked to the center, letting the tension build until I revealed a truth so profound. For those who don't know, I'm Samuel Thompson. I own this company. Gasps filled the room as eyes rippled with shock. I continued, I've owned it long before you ever cared to notice. Donna's protests were muffled by disbelief as I presented documents, projected clearly by my trusted secretary, Ashley. A constant force by my side through every upheaval. Her calm efficiency had been the backbone of this empire, and today she quietly validated every damning word I spoke. After the meeting, I took a moment to remind you, our loyal listeners, that if you enjoy these deep dives and shifting power dynamics, please feel free to subscribe and join our conversation. Your likes and comments help keep our community thriving as we share these stories of calculated transformation. The fallout was complete. Donna's world crumbled under the weight of her own lies. Her house, her money, and her position were now mine to control. I left the meeting room as silently as I had entered, leaving behind a woman who had unknowingly lost everything. Later, I drove back to the mansion, a somber reminder that sometimes victory comes not with celebration, but with the cold, quiet satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. Inside, Ashley and I reviewed the final details of Donna's unraveling empire. Documents confirmed that every joint account was securely locked and that the real power had shifted. From our new study, lined with dark oak bookshelves and dominated by a sleek desk, I watched the security feed one last time. Donna's sedan idled, her figure slumped and defeated at the mansion gates. I allowed the silence to speak volumes, knowing that she had no recourse left. I'd given her 7 years of stability, a life she took for granted, and now she would pay the price for her choices? I gathered my resolve and set out to tie up the remaining loose ends. Within hours, the house sale was in motion with cash offers piling in, and further updates confirmed that Donna's desperate attempts to reach out had grown frantic and futile. By noon, I was back in my study, where a message from Ashley confirmed in her cool tone that no one even mourned Donna's departure. Her efficiency and loyalty had kept me grounded through every storm, and today I found solace in knowing that I had finally reclaimed my future. As the afternoon wore on, the security system alerted me that Donna's car had returned. I watched, detached, as she cautiously approached the mansion, her voice pleading through the intercom, desperate for a conversation I no longer intended to have. I muted her pleas, letting her frantic words dissolve into the background as I planned my next move. With Ashley by my side, we settled in the mansion's kitchen, reviewing contracts and quietly acknowledging that the old life was over. Ashley's warm laughter and gentle touch reminded me that, even amidst chaos, hope could still emerge. Later, with rain tapping gently against the mansion's windows, a soothing contrast to the earlier storm, I sat with Ashley over coffee. In that quiet moment, the past no longer haunted me. Instead, a new future beckoned. A future that was real, promising, and profoundly mine to shape. I caught my reflection as I dressed for the day. The man staring back looked resolute, unburdened, and ready to embrace what lay ahead. The empire I built had been a fortress in the shadows, but now I craved something more authentic, something true. Ashley arrived that same morning in her sleek coupe, her arrival marking not an end, but a new beginning. Together, we finalized the details of my breakthrough move, the exquisite sale of my company to a competitor, severing every last tie to Donna's world. The deal was sealed, her signature on every part of the past erased by the cold logic of profit and precision. "You're free," Ashley said lightly, teasingly, as if the weight of loss were but a small stone in our path forward. Later, we left the mansion for lunch at a lively bistro downtown, a place brimming with noise and life, far removed from the hushed corridors of our former existence. As we shared a meal by the window, the conversation turned not to past betrayals, but to the vibrant present in the possibilities of a shared future. Her gentle laugh, warm and genuine, struck a chord deep within me. I confessed quietly, "You sticking around, that means everything." There was an unspoken promise in her smile, as if both of us were finally reclaiming the parts of life we thought lost. We drove north afterwards, the open road rolling past in endless green hills, the city a distant memory fading behind us. For the first time in many years, I felt the last of those rigid knots in my chest unravel. 7 years with Donna had been a confining cage, and now I was tasting freedom. I didn't see Donna again until we looped back toward the mansion later that day. There she was, soaked and shivering, a shell of the woman I once knew. As we passed her in my sleek sedan, her hollow, pleading eyes met mine one final time. I drove on without a backward glance, closing that chapter forever. Inside, Ashley shed her coat and offered a quiet word of caution about the outside world. But I was already certain. Donna was nothing more than a lingering memory, a ghost whose time had expired. In the dimming light, I invited Ashley to stay the night, a decision made without a second thought. Together, we ascended the mansion's stairs, the space now alive with the promise of new beginnings. To everyone listening, if this story has stirred something in you, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to our community and helps us continue to bring you these riveting stories. That very night, the rain continued to fall softly against our windows as I reflected on everything that had transpired. Donna had become a faded memory, her world torn apart by the choices she'd made, all while I reclaimed control and stepped boldly into the future. In the quiet solitude of the early hours, wrapped in newly discovered clarity, I knew there was no turning back. I had built this empire from the shadows, and now it was time to embrace something brighter, something real. Dressed in a crisp charcoal silk tie and freshly pressed slacks, I glanced into the mirror. The man I saw was resolute, his eyes clear, and his ambitions unburdened by the past. I left for work in my sleek black sedan, the engine purring like a predator on the prowl. Stepping into the towering company building, a sleek monument of glass and steel, I made my way past curious colleagues who never suspected I was the mastermind behind the operations they took for granted. I met Ashley in the lobby, her purposeful heels and the steady gaze silently affirming her loyalty. Our next step was inevitable. In a conference room lined with glass, Donna was mid-sentence, trying desperately to maintain her composure. The door opened and all eyes turned. "Samuel?" she whispered, shock evident in her voice. I didn't reply immediately. The silence hung heavy before I declared to everyone present, "For those who aren't aware, I'm Samuel Thompson, the owner of this company." The room buzzed with disbelief as I revealed the hidden truth behind every desk and deal. Donna's protests were feeble, and with one final unyielding command to pack her things, I ended her tenure. The whispers and shocked stares only confirmed what she had lost, a kingdom built on false promises and half-truths. In the elevator on our way out, Ashley murmured softly, "She never saw it coming." I prefaced that with a quiet, determined smile. Our exit was silent, our shared understanding clear. I had shown her the dark shadow lurking behind a facade, and now she would face the consequences of her actions. Later, as I drove back to the mansion with the city receding in the mirror, I knew that I had sealed Donna's fate. My empire was intact, my hands unsoiled, and the taste of victory was bitter yet sweet. From the mansion's terrace with the sun climbing steadily over the skyline, I sipped my coffee and contemplated what lay ahead. Donna's downfall was complete, and a new chapter awaited, a chapter built on calculated justice and the promise of freedom. By the afternoon, loose ends were being tied up. The house sale was moving forward with cash offers pouring in, and further updates confirmed that Donna's desperate attempts to salvage her past were futile. I retreated to my study, now adorned with dark oak shelves and a minimalist desk, where I reviewed the day's final reports. A text from Ashley brought a small smile. Apparently, no one was mourning her departure. In that quiet moment, I understood that sometimes the end of one chapter is the hopeful beginning of another. As the day wound down and the security system beeped once more, confirming Donna's lingering presence outside, I watched her approach the mansion. Her voice crackled through the intercom with an earnest plea for a conversation, a plea I no longer intended to answer. I muted the intercom, letting her desperation fade into the night. Outside, as the rain pattered against the gates, I felt certain that Donna's time in the spotlight had long passed. Ashley soon joined me in the foyer, and we reviewed the final documents that marked the complete severance of Donna's influence from my world. With every signature placed, every account frozen, I committed fully to a future where I controlled every move. That evening, as I lay awake listening to gentle rain tap against the mansion's windows and the distant hum of a city that had once defined my past, I knew that I had exorcised a ghost from my life. In the early hours of the next morning, dressed and resolute, I caught my reflection in the mirror. A man who had built an empire from the shadows, yet now craved something honest and new. Ashley, ever the steady presence, arrived with final papers confirming the sale of the company to a competitor, a clean break that erased every trace of the past. "You're free," she said lightly, and in that moment, as we shared a quiet laugh in the dining room over documents spread across a massive walnut table, I felt the weight lift. After signing off on every detail, we decided to escape the confines of mansion walls for a while. We took my sedan and headed to a bustling downtown bistro where the clamor of life and the vibrant chatter felt like a balm. Over pasta and steak, we talked about jazz, old cars, and the life we envisioned. At one point, with the noise of the restaurant swirling around us, she reached out, her hand resting gently on mine. "You're different today," she remarked softly. "Lighter." I met her gaze and replied, "I've realized that sticking around and facing life head-on truly matters." After lunch, we simply drove north with no set destination, the open road inviting us to leave behind the fragments of a life that had become a distant memory. The city fell away, replaced by rolling hills bathed in sunlight, and with each mile I felt a little more free. For too long, Donna's shadows had caged me, but now every turn on that endless road promised freedom. Hours later, when we eventually looped back toward the mansion, I spotted Donna's sedan off to the side, a final remnant of the past. As we passed, she looked up at me, hollow, pleading, and utterly defeated, but I pressed on without looking back. Inside the mansion, Ashley's warm presence offered quiet reassurance. "Stay tonight," I said simply, and she stepped closer, intertwining our hands as the rain outside faded to a distant murmur. Donna was gone, a memory locked away with her own choices, and the future now shimmered bright and real before us. To our listeners, if you've been captivated by this journey of transformation and raw emotion, please consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your support fuels our storytelling. That night, I sat on the terrace of my new home, the city lights below like scattered jewels, and reflected on the dramatic shift in my life. Donna's betrayal had been met with precise, calculated justice. Every loose end had been tied, every secret revealed. I had dismantled an empire built on deceit, and in its place I was crafting something genuine, a future defined by control, clarity, and unexpected hope. In the quiet of the early morning rain, with Ashley by my side and my empire secure, I knew there was no looking back. The man in the mirror was free, unburdened by the past, and ready to step boldly into tomorrow. The journey had been long, fraught with betrayal and calculated moves, but now the dawn promised a new beginning, a chance to build something real that would outshine the remnants of yesterday. Thank you for joining our story today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to catch more compelling narratives that explore the depths of human ambition and redemption. Our journey continues, and your support makes all the difference.